Welcome to Moxie Bets, presented by Caesars Sportsbook. I'm your host, Katie Mox, and coming up on today's show, the Bengals got a big win last night to hand the Dolphins their very first loss of the season. But the story was Tua, who was carted off the field in a very scary moment. We'll get into that and everything from last night's game. We'll preview Week 4 and give you our best bets, and you know it. We got some Mox Locks coming your way. But before we get started, let's bring in our guest, Alex Englert from Overtime and the man behind the Overtime Season account, as well as various other sports and gambling content across Overtime's platforms. Alex, or as I like to call you, Ace, how's it going? And thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's been a long time since you and I caught up on some sports stuff, so I'm very much so looking forward to this, Katie.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex and I used to, we were, I guess, analysts or bankers. I don't know what you would call us for the parlay hot seat over at
Yes.
Overtime. We would fund people's parlays and, or sometimes we wouldn't give them any money, but it was a fun
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, we had very different betting strategies. Katie was very analytical, data, stats. I was like, I got a gut feeling, and we're going with this, so this should be fun.
Both are valuable.
Yeah,
But let's get
very
in right
important.
now to the Mox Thought. Joe Burrow and the Bengals won a pivotal game over the Dolphins last night, 27-15. From a better standpoint, the Bengals covered the 4-point spread. The under hit. And as far as player props, according to Caesars, the over in Tyreek Hill and Jamar Chase's receiving yards attracted the most action and money from bettors last night. Both of those cashed. Hill had 160 yards, Chase with 81. Big win for the public there. I went 2-1 in my Mox Locks for TNF. We cashed Joe Burrow under 11.5 rush yards. Shout out to the victory kneels, but we missed Tyreek Hill any time. And of course, we got the under. He had 160 yards, but no touchdown. All that said, who cares? All anyone can talk about or think about is Tua and whether or not he should have played in last night's game. Alex, what do you think of this? I want to hear your thoughts on this. I'm very passionately about that he probably shouldn't have been playing.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think he should have been on the field at all. I think you're going to see a lot of arguments of people saying the doctors okayed him, and it wasn't his choice. He was allowed to play, so he's going to play. I think that there has to be a serious investigation. And I hate to put that word out there because it sounds very daunting, but there's no reason that guy should have been on the field. He's risking his life and career at this point.
I agree 100%. He very obviously had head trauma last Sunday versus the Bills. He hit his head hard on the turf. We all saw it. He was exhibiting signs of a concussion, such as disorientation, shaking the cobwebs off the head. And he also was touching his head. He wasn't touching his back. Of course, that was ruled a back injury. A lot of people question that. And then, of course, he gets hit again. And that was really, really scary last night when he was exhibiting the signs of fencing, which is, neurological trauma. And, you talk about whether or not to put it in. I want to give some credit to your Steelers and Mike Tomlin. I was watching a podcast clip today of when Tomlin came on Ryan Clark's podcast, and there was a time where Tomlin wouldn't let Clark play in Denver due to his sickle cell disease. He said, if you were my kid, this wouldn't even be a conversation. It's my job to take care of that dude in that moment, even more than he cared about himself, because Ryan Clark was cleared by the doctors. Ryan Clark wanted to play, and Tomlin stepped in and said, no, your life is more important than this game. And I don't want to shade Mike McDaniel because I love him. He's, former 49ers offensive coordinator, and I do think he's really great. But as an organization, this was a fail to the player, and they should have stepped in and said, you know what? You hit your head really hard 4 days ago. We're not going to put you in this game again.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, this is a very sobering moment. These are the parts of football where you take a step back and realize there's a human element to this. I know you need to win football games and there's contracts and there's big money and advertising and Thursday Night Football and all that stuff, but there's the human element to this. These are people's lives. And you hope he's okay. I mean, I know the UC medical staff was very much a pivotal role in Ryan Shazier's injury, and they took care of him very well, which also happened in Cincy. So I hope he's okay. It sounds like he's doing all right, but yeah, there's got to be a bigger talk for sure in that Dolphins locker room.
I'm so curious to see what the NFLPA, what their investigation turns up here. They were already investigating last week. I'm sure that is intensified now. But I gave a little shout out to your Steelers. Now I'm going to bring it back to the Steelers.
Appreciate
You're
it.
a Pittsburgh native and a lifelong Steelers fan. Let's talk about Trubisky here. He's left a lot to be desired so far in the season. Your fans are booing him and already calling for Pickett. What's your take on this? Is it Kenny Pickett time? And if not, then when?
It's not, and I'm just going to nip that in the bud. And I've had this conversation about 7,000 times with Pittsburghers. Pittsburghers are, we're very loyal people and we're very adamant, passionate, but we can be dumb. My issue with bringing in Kenny Pickett is once he's in, right? You cannot do this. He's in, then Mitch is in the next week and back and forth. And if
Yeah.
you look at the Steelers' schedule, the month of October is impossible. It's the Bills, the Bucks, the Dolphins, and the Eagles. So we have some
Oof.
question marks on our we have some question marks on our offense. The line's spotty, the play calling's not great. You bring in a rookie quarterback versus these four teams, you might be setting them up for failure. And I know there's a chance he has this effect where it's like, oh, he takes over, blah blah blah. I look at Joe Burrow's rookie year and like his injuries and the way he got hit. Yeah,
Trey
like
Lance.
next year that's what I'm Trey Lance exactly. Like yeah, they bounce back and they get to a Super Bowl, but it's like you're risking the kid's career for your franchise on a chance to go 8-9. So let's just hold off. And like I think you see success in sitting a year like you did with Patrick Mahomes behind Smith. I think there's more stats to back up resting him and being like learn the game than to be like, hey, go win us a random dumb game in November.
All right, Alex, that's an interesting take. And I tend to agree with you. At first, I was going to say, let's put Pickett in, let's see what the kid can do. But I am a huge proponent of having people wait a year or even more years, 2 or 3 years behind a quarterback to really get used to the NFL because it is a different ball game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
So,
just as tired as the next person of watching Mitch Trubisky throw the football. Like, I'm not gonna like sit here and say he's the guy. Like, he's clearly struggling with this offense, but I think there's bigger holes and questions that I don't feel confident that Pickett's gonna fix. I think the line is spotty. I think the play calling is kind of dumb right now. I don't really love what Canada's doing in the OC box. So I think let's figure out everything else and then put the franchise quarterback in and not let him just get sacked 50 times a game by the Bucks and the Bills and the Eagles.
I think that makes sense. What do you think about TJ Watt and his pec muscle? To me, I'm like, if you need 4 or 5 different doctors, you probably should just like get the surgery and not
Yeah.
come back this season. Like, why are we going? It feels to me very much like he went to a doctor. He kept going to doctors until they said yes.
100%. Yeah, there's something about these Watt boys and their like shoulder
Oh,
pec air. Like I don't
yeah,
know what. Maybe it's because they're
yeah.
like too strong. It's like Bo Jackson effect. I don't know. I want him to come back selfishly because I think this is one of the better defenses the Steelers have ever had. Like between Minka and Watt and Hayward, it's like kind of the
Yeah.
last leg of this group together. So selfishly, I want him back. But to the same effect that I don't want Kenny in, it's like, do we risk a further injury with Watt for a season where it's like we're probably going to get torched in some of these games. And I'm not giving up on the season by any means, but I also would like to have TJ Watt for 4 more seasons as opposed to just
Yeah.
like risking it all for a 50-50 season.
Yeah. You look at JJ Watt, who came back a little bit too early, and he's struggled ever since.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on now to Capper's Corner. All right, people, we're brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook, the greatest sports betting app of all time. See, it's not just about the daily promos, odd boosts, or the hundreds of ways to wager. It's about the immortal words of Caesar himself. You bet, you get with Caesars Rewards. Every bet you place on the app, no matter the outcome, earns towards exclusive perks at Caesars Rewards destinations everywhere. Hotel stays, concert tickets, bonuses, and more. Download the Caesars Sportsbook app, become a Caesars Rewards member today, and get more with every wager. Must be 21 or older to gamble. Gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-522-4700. Time now for Capper's Corner, where we will give you our best bets for the weekend, week 4. First up, Lions versus Seahawks. Lions are favored by 4, over under 48. Both teams looking for their second win of the season. A couple betting trends. Seattle 1-5 against the spread in the last 6 games against an NFC North team. Detroit 6-0 against the spread in their last 6 home games. They are cash cows against the spread. Totals hit the over in 6 of Seattle's last 9 games and also in 5 of Detroit's last games. Geno Smith, Alex, 78% completion percentage this season. He leads the NFL. He's the 5th highest through week 3 since the 1970 merger. What do you think of this game?
First of all, shout out Geno Smith, man. Just proving
Shout out
everybody
Geno.
wrong, which I love it. I like the Lions in this game. I really do. I like the Lions with the points -4. 3-0 against the spread this year. I think if you look at their losses, they were like pretty tough losses. I don't think they should have lost last week versus the Vikings. I think that came down to bad play calling late in the game. And I think this is a team that can put up some serious points. And I don't really have a lot of faith in that Seahawks defense. I mean, this is a team that put up 35
How
versus
could you?
Philly. Yeah, exactly. So I think that, and I know they got some injuries, DeAndre Swift, Amon Ra's kind of out, but like Jamal Williams looked great when he had to play. So I really like the Lions to -4. I think they get it done for Seattle.
I'm in agree with you as well. I'm going to take the Lions -4. I haven't been super high on the Lions this year, but when looking at them against the spread, you just said it, 3-0 against the spread. They're 14-6 against the spread under head coach Dan Campbell, 10-2 against the spread in their last 12 games. That's the best in the NFL. So
Yeah.
against someone like the Seahawks, I'm going to take them all day long. So I'm going to do that number 4 as well. Is there anything else that you're looking at in this game?
Honestly, no. I like the total scares me truthfully because I think this is a game where it's like, oh, it either goes over by a million, it's like a 35-42 game because both defenses just give up and it's just a shootout, or it's like a field goal battle. I really think that like it depends on which defense shows up because I know the Lions got some injuries at safety and corner. It just depends on who plays that day. But I think they get it done regardless, -4. But the total scares the living daylights out.
Yeah, I'm not going to touch the total either. I'm actually going to do a Geno Smith prop here. And it's interesting because I just said about how great his completion is, but I'm going to take him over 6.5 rush yards. Is at -119 on Caesar Sportsbook. He's averaging 5 rush yards per game this season. He had 14 versus the Broncos. That was his biggest game. But last year, he averaged about 10.5 rush yards per game. And if you look at Detroit's defense, they're struggling against the run. They're allowing 5 yards per carry and a league high 7 rushing touchdowns. So I do think that we'll see Geno scrambling a little bit more. So I'm going to take him over his rush prop.
Yeah, I like that too. I think that makes a lot of sense.
All right. Yeah, let's ride. And speaking
Oh
of
my god.
let's ride into the Broncos versus the
Oh
Raiders.
my
Raiders
god.
2.5-point favorites. They're -140 on the money line, over under 45.5. That's pretty low. Denver is just yikes, yikes, yikes. They're 11-8 straight up in their last 19 road games, but against Las Vegas, but that's an entirely different team. I mean, I don't know what's happening with Russell Wilson. What do you think of this game?
We as a football community need to agree that this is the most anticlimactic offense to ever exist.
Ever.
It was like
And
a
they're
big
winning their
blockbuster
division right
movie.
now. They're leading their
I know.
division.
It drives me nuts. I'm not overthinking this one. I think sometimes there is just like a simple football fact about it. I like the Raiders -2.5 because I don't think this Raiders team is as bad as the record shows. I
No.
think they're 0-3 off 3 really hard losses. You lose to the Chargers in a divisional game. You lose to the Titans in a heartbreaker when you actually shut them out in the second half. They actually looked great that second half, but they just let out 24 in the first. I think this Broncos team is about as uninspired as it gets. I honestly can't stand Russell Wilson anymore. Like he's not fun to watch. It's just boring.
Yeah.
I like the Raiders -2.5. I think if you need a win, your back's against the wall and you're at home versus a divisional opponent, now's the chance to do it.
I agree with you 100%. I think that the Raiders are a better team than what their record shows, and the Broncos are a much worse team than what their record shows. And you can't,
Yeah.
the Raiders right now are desperate for a win. We saw what the Colts, who were desperate for a win, looked like against the Chiefs last weekend. I feel like we're going to see a lot of that more. And it's funny that you said that you can't stand Russell Wilson right now because I had tweeted something the other day. The rise and fall of Wilson's popularity from even just last year until now, it has
Yeah.
declined sharply. I don't know if
Yeah.
there is a person who likes Russell Wilson. And I don't know if it's a lot of the ads that he's been doing recently or his whole kind of like stand in the middle of the field situation or yelling on the sideline, trying to get it. It's just, there's
Yeah.
something going on with Wilson that it's not resonating with people. I'm going to take the Raiders -2.5, but I'm also going to fade Russell Wilson here and take him under 1.5 passing touchdowns. Now it's juicy. It's at -151. So maybe you want to throw this in a parlay. But if we take a look at this offense, Alex, they're 31st in scoring. They have the 34th scoring offense. That's dead last in the league. Wilson himself ranks 22 in passer rating and is QB number 25 in fantasy. Let Russ cook, QB 25 in fantasy. He has 2 touchdown passes in 3 games. Last week against the Niners, he went 9 and out 9 different times. Excuse me, 3 and
Oh
out
God.
9 different times. That was the first time in his career. So if you look at it, it's like, what's wrong? Well, one, he's not throwing the deep dimes like he used to. His targets have been completely off. The only 2 quarterbacks who are less accurate or more inaccurate than Russell Wilson right now, Baker Mayfield and Davis Mills, which is like duh. So I'm fading Russell Wilson until he shows me that
Yeah.
he can cook up something other than Cheese Whiz and crackers.
I was gonna say let Russ cook. He's making like microwavable lean cuisines. I'm with you there. I like the under in this 45.5 for the reason you just said. The offense in the Broncos side is unproductive as it gets. They haven't hit an over once this year. The Raiders have hit an over one time. It was versus the Titans, and that game was kind of just like show across the board. I think it's two offenses that really just can't get it going. And I think it's a Raiders defense that's actually playing well. If they carry that second half of the Titans game into the Broncos game, they'll be fine. Like they kind of played lights out. So I like the under 45 and a half. I mean, I don't see this game breaching 40. I think it's like 14-17. This is a Broncos team versus your Niners that had like 5 points in the first half. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I mean, it's ugly. It's embarrassing. It's a big blockbuster movie that went nowhere, and you're like, why did I pay for the Broncos? But I like the under for that reason.
Yeah, well, that Sunday night game, I can't even really talk about, Alex. I
It
hate
was
myself for
ridiculous.
watching every single
Yeah,
down
I know.
of that
Yeah,
game. But I like the under in this as well, and unders have been a cash cow for bettors this season. Under is 29, 18, and 1, hitting at 62%. That is the best under through week 3 since 1991. So I'm going to ride with you on that one. Now let's talk about the Jags versus the Eagles. Eagles favorite -6.5, just under a touchdown, over under 45.5. Peterson heads back to Philly. He was the head coach from
no.
2016 to 2020, two-time NFC champion, Super Bowl champion, winning record 42, 37, and 1 during his time there. How do you see this one shaken out?
This is probably the game I'm most excited about, which is like if
Oh,
you asked me this last year, I wouldn't have even turned this on. um, but I think
true.
these are two teams that are like fun to watch. I think they're both
Yeah.
like high powered offenses. I like the Eagles -6.5. 2-1 against the spread this year. I think the line is kind of lower just because the Jags have played some like inspired defense. They shut out the Colts. They kind of embarrassed the Chargers, but like a banged up
Yeah.
Herbert. So I think that line's a little lower than it should be. And I think I mean, at the end of the day, this is a Jags team that let Carson Wentz throw for 4 touchdowns and 300 yards. Like, I know that was week 1, but still, like Jalen
Yeah.
Hurts and this Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Miles Sanders combination, I feel like they're going to cook them. I could see the Jags putting up good points as well, but I think the Eagles -6.5 feels safe.
Yeah, I'm 100% riding with you on this one. I am all aboard the Eagles train. I wasn't exactly on it to start the season off. I thought maybe Washington could win the division, and well, the Eagles just beat them 24-8 as five and a
Yep.
half point road favorites. They covered that spread. They had 9 sacks, the most by any team this season. So I do feel like
Yeah.
sunshine over there in Florida is going to be under some trouble here.
Yeah.
Jacksonville also 0-7 against the spread in the last 7 games versus the NFC. Philadelphia, as we know, 9-1 straight up in their last 10 games versus the AFC South. And I just feel like this is going to happen. I also like Jalen Hurts under his interception prop. He has 1 interception so far this season in just 3 games. The Jags have been pretty good. They've actually intercepted 6 passes this season, but so far no defense has been able to stop Hurts, Brown, and Devonta Smith all at once. Though that combined triple threat on the field forces defenses to spread out, and so I just feel like it's going to limit the possibility of Hurts throwing an interception because I don't think anyone's really gonna be there.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think there's too many weapons and not enough people to guard them. And for that reason, I actually like the over as well. I like the over of this game.
Oh,
It just seems too low to me.
yeah.
It's like 45 and a half. And I think, like I said, Jags played good ball the past 2 weeks, good defensively. They let up 28 to the Commanders. Eagles played great, past 2 weeks. They let up 35 to the Lions. Like these are defenses that can be exposed if you play it right. And I think it's two offenses that have the ability to expose them. So I think it's a shootout with the Eagles covering, but I don't think that like either defense really steps up. I think it's really like an offensive battle back and forth.
Yeah, and I feel like the Jags got lucky last week, like you said, with a banged up Chargers. Like I'm not looking at the Jags and being like, oh wow, they beat the Chargers. I feel like the Chargers were just injured and had their own issues. So
Yeah.
for them to repeat that again and then beat someone like the Eagles, no, I don't think so. And I definitely think that they will cover. And I'll ride with you on that over as well. Bills versus Ravens. This is a game that I'm actually really excited about. Both of these teams, 2-1 straight up and against the spread. Only losses came from the Dolphins, which we know had their first loss last night. This is going to be a really exciting quarterback duel. You got Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Allen has 9 passing touchdowns and 113 rush yards. Lamar, 10 passing touchdowns and 243 rush yards. They're ranked 1 and 2 in fantasy points. I mean,
Yeah.
Lamar's been playing like he needs a contract and he wants some guaranteed
Yes.
money. But what do you think of this game?
He's playing some pay me money.
Yes.
I watched Lamar in college. I went to the University of Louisville. He's kind of giving me the shades of his Heisman year this year, and it's like really fun to watch.
Yeah.
That being said, I can't pick a winner in this game. I truthfully have
Mm.
no idea. I went back and forth. It's too much, so I stuck to props. Josh Allen over 1.5 passing touchdowns feels
Oh,
like
let's go.
automatic.
Easy money.
I mean, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? He's had over one every game. He's had like three or four in some games. That Monday night game versus the Titans, I was like, he's the best player in the world. I also think that loss last week to the Dolphins, he's playing pissed. Like when he gets mad, you can kind of see it. Like
Mhm.
he very much so plays onto the field. I think he's coming to this game with a chip on his shoulder, and I think he kind of takes over.
100%. That's why I'm going to take the Bills -3 here in a huge bounce
Oof,
back spot for them.
oof.
It's a little bit scary because they've lost
It's
7
sketchy.
straight one-score games. It's the longest active losing streak in the NFL. All of their 14 wins have come by double digits or more. So I just feel like they're due for a close one. I don't think they're going to blow out the Ravens, but they can't have lost 7 straight single score games. They got to get one single score game. So I'm going to roll with the Bills on this one in a huge bounce back spot for them. I also like Lamar Jackson under 55 rushing yards, which I know seems crazy because it's Lamar, and I just told you how many rushing yards that he has. Plus, there's going to be bad weather, so you feel like they're going to run the ball more. But the Bills' defense is ranked number 2 against the run, surrendering just 57.7 yards per game. So they're surrendering basically what Lamar Jackson's prop is. And the reality is if you want to stop the Ravens, the way to do that is to stop Lamar Jackson. They managed to hold running back Derrick Henry just to 25 yards and 13 total carries. I also think that J.K. Dobbins coming off of injury, he's going to get more carries in this. So I kind of feel like they'll have an answer for Lamar, but maybe not for Dobbins. So I'm going to take him under his 55. I don't know. It's a gut feeling. It's an Alex bet here, a gut feeling, Lamar under.
You got to trust it. You got to trust it, Katie. No, I completely agree. And that's actually why I have the prop of Devin Duvernay over 29.5 receiving yards, is because I think if you want to stop the Ravens, you have to stop 8, right? So you're going to bring some
Yep.
pressure on the quarterback. And I think the Ravens' best strategy is just to get the ball in space to your playmakers. And Devin Duvernay has looked awesome. He's kind of given
Yep.
me these shades of like an earlier Antonio Brown with the Steelers, where it's like throw him wherever you want, throw him at the slot, throw him in the backfield, put him in motion, put him on kick return, punt return. And I do think that, if you're going to beat the Bills, you got to kind of have some gadget plays. And I think that Devin Duvernay is the guy to do it. So I like him over his receiving yards. He's done it. He's had over 29 in 2 of the games. Last time he got stumped by the Patriots, but that was just a tough bout. Yeah, I like that a lot.
All right, good. I feel like we're on the same page with that one, but I'm
Yeah.
still going to go with the Bills to win this game.
You're
I'm just super high on the
you're
Bills. I
stronger
was
than
high
I
on them
am.
last year. What'd you say?
I said you're stronger than I am. I couldn't like I was looking at this and I was like either team could win. Like I really can't. The fact that this isn't a pick 'em to me is like ridiculous.
Yes. Well, either team can win, and I'm just banking on the fact that the Bills are due for a single possession win. Okay, they can't lose that many. We're not going to make this 8 in a row. I mean, at least I hope not. I could have egg on my face come on Monday. The last game we're going to talk about is, it's a hard one for me. It's the Rams versus the 49ers. The Niners are favored here, -1.5. -125 on the money line. This over under 42.5. Now, we do know that the Niners own Sean McVay in the regular season. We did lose the NFC championship game to them last year. Niners last week, you got to think that they're going to play better than that. I mean, you have to believe they'll play better than that, especially on the offense. When I look at the Rams, they don't look like the Super Bowl team of last year. I think they lack depth and they haven't been as good as they normally are. But I would love this is kind of a stay away game for me. I might have a couple props here. I don't know what to do. I don't know what Niners team is going to show up. So tell me what you think of this game.
I feel kind of similar to you. I don't really like either team. I don't think either team really has it. I'm gonna hurt you a little bit. I'm gonna go Rams money line.
Oh,
It's like it's like telling a little kid Santa Claus doesn't exist. It
it
really
is.
hurts. Um, but the reason being, I think, is because Sean McVay has been dominated by the Niners for a long time. Like he's
Yeah.
lost 6 straight outside of that NFC Championship game. I think this is the game that kind of turns the tide for him. Of like, I
Yeah.
don't want to be the guy who just can't beat the Niners. They beat him last year in the NFC Championship game. I think in his mind, it's like we have to repeat that. I think this is a bigger win than most people see for like the
Yeah.
Rams locker room. This is a kind of a must win because if you continue to be dominated by the Niners, you can't have that team be your kryptonite. So I think I like the Rams money line in that case.
I mean, it's hard to argue with what you're saying. I don't like it, but I'm not taking a side on this one. I'm hopeful that the
Yeah.
Niners can win this game. I will be screaming in my living room for the Niners to win this game. I do think I might sprinkle a little on a George Kittle anytime touchdown. He didn't really have that much going on last week. They've got to get him
Yeah.
involved if they want to win these games, especially versus someone like the Rams. And so let's sprinkle a little bit on. And I think you already know what my favorite bet is. Was there another prop bet that you're looking at for this?
Yeah, you know what? This one's 100% inspired by you. I've just heard you talk about it too much that I'm like, I've talked myself into it. I like
Yeah,
Stafford over on picks. I like Stafford over on picks. I really do.
Santa
Dude,
Claus is
it's
alive
like
and well.
he's alive and well. You know what I mean? Don't worry about old Saint Nick. He's doing just fine. I think the big thing is like it's a volume game, right? Like he didn't throw one last week because he threw the ball 20 times. He throws the
Yeah,
ball 40 times in week one, throws two. He throws the ball 37 times or something in week two, throws three. Versus like it's really just a numbers game.
yeah,
So I think if they're going to throw the ball, which I think they can do on the Niners, one of those is going to the other team.
yeah. One and again, it's like Matthew Stafford versus the blitz, and then Matthew Stafford when he's not blitzed. Now the Bills did not blitz him one time in that opening game, and he just looked completely lost. We know the Niners have that kind of power over him as well. I wish I would have looked at the stat before we got on here, but I'm pretty sure he's thrown a pick in every single game against the 49ers. And so I expect him to do that again. It is the best bet in football, guys. Death taxes and Matthew Stafford to throw an interception. Yes, it did not hit last week. We understand that, but one in every game last season, a bunch this season. So he didn't have one last season. What last game? He's definitely going to
Yeah.
have one this time. I like Kittle. I might lean a little bit on the under in this game. It's low at 42.5, but I think that the Niners defense, I mean, we saw they almost had a perfect shutout, and then Kyle decided
Yeah.
not to go for it on that one, and then the
Yeah.
what was it? Was it a pick six? No, it wasn't a pick six. Russell Wilson finally at the end of the game threw one. But the Niners defense is playing lights out. I think they can still hold the Rams to that. And then the Rams haven't been as productive on offense as well. So I might lean under on this game, but I'm staying away from this one. I'm going to hold my breath.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's also I feel like for you specifically, I try not to bet on Steelers games. Like I really try not to because I'm like I can't be emotionally and financially invested. Like I can't do both
Yeah.
because like if I lose one, I lose it all. It's a heartbreaker. So if I were you, I would stay away. Okay, just stay away. Do yourself a favor.
Well, here's the thing. If I have a real edge, like if I've done the research and I can find a real edge, then I can separate the head from the heart because I'm like, no, this is an actual real smart bet.
Yeah.
But if I don't feel like there's any kind of an edge, I'm not going to. I don't like it when people put a bet down just willing for it to happen. Like just because you put your money on it does not mean that it's going to happen. You're not willing the team to win because you threw $100 or $20 or whatever it is on it. So unless you found an angle. And one of my favorite things that I heard from Todd Foreman is the only advantage that we have over the sports books is that we do not have to bet every single game. Wait and see where you have an edge over the book. And those are the bets that you place. You don't have to bet everything. You shouldn't bet everything unless there's an edge. And certainly not if your heart's involved.
I wish I followed that advice more closely. I couldn't tell you how many times I'm like $20 and I can feel it in my stomach. Like let's just go. Here we go. But yeah, no, it's sage advice.
All right. So our Mox Locks, which are, we gave you a lot of picks on this game where we're leaning, maybe what we're putting our money to, but the locks of this game, I'm taking Russell Wilson over 1.5 passing touchdowns. Lock that up all day. And I'm also taking Jalen Hurts under his interception prop. Alex likes the Eagles -6.5. Go Birds, and the Raiders and Broncos under. Alex, thank you so much for joining the show today. Let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely, Kate. First of all, thank you for having me. It's always good to talk money line spreads and props with you. It's been far too long. Got to make this a recurring thing. Yeah, go follow Overtime Season SCN on Instagram. Go follow OT7, which is our new high school specific page for high school football. Overtime's doing cool stuff in football space. It's very exciting times, and it's fun to work in because football's kind of been my life for my entire career. So it's good stuff.
Well, we thank you for sharing all of that with us. This has been Moxie Bets presented by Caesars Sportsbook. We'll see you next time. And don't forget to follow us on social at Moxie Bets.